Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ladies and gentlemen, the December 19th, 2018 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order. I would like to welcome everyone to the AD Auditorium. Please silence all electronic devices. I would like to introduce the panel. The Charter Authorizing Panel oversees the authorization, renewal, revision, and revocation of charters. Recently passed Act 462 of 2017 allows the individuals outside the department to serve on the panel. In accordance with Act 462 and in an effort to increase representation for multiple stakeholder groups, Commissioner Key has named 7 members to the Charter Authorizing Panel. Dr. Ivy Pfeffer, AD Deputy Commissioner, Greg Rogers, AD Assistant Commissioner for Fiscal and Administrative Services, Dr. Mike Hernandez, State Superintendent for Office of Coordinated Support and Service, Dr. Angela Kramers, Deputy Director for Career and Technical Education at the Arkansas Department of Career Education, Mike Wilson, Education Advocate and Attorney in Jacksonville, Dr. Nackerman Williams, former State Board of Education member from August 11, 2004 to June 30, 2011, Toyce Newton, former State Board of Education member from August 18, 2009 to June 30, 2016. As acting chair today, my goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing. I will request that each person speaking please state your name and title for the record. I will ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone for the benefit of the panel, the audience, and the viewing audience. The entire meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Ms. Sharon Hill, the court reporter, will be providing a transcript of the meeting, and it will be posted to the AD website. We will now move into our action agenda. Mr. Ballard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reginald Ballard, Arkansas Department of Education. Our first action on the agenda is a request for district conversion charter school renewal for Fountain Lake Middle School Cobra Digital Prep Academy. On January 16, 2014, the Charter Authorizing Panel approved the application for Fountain Lake Middle School Cobra Digital Prep Academy. The charter is approved to serve students in grades 5 through 8 with a maximum enrollment of 500. The representatives of Fountain Lake Middle School Cobra Digital Prep Academy are appearing before the Charter Authorizing Panel to request renewal of their current charter.
Thank you. Ms. Hyde, if you would just review the process for us today.
Mary Claire Hyde, Arkansas Department of Education. So everyone, with the exception of the attorneys representing the applicants who plan to speak or provide testimony to you today, need to be sworn before they speak. The charter schools will have 20 minutes to present their application for renewal. Anyone who is opposed to the application will share 20 minutes subsequently, and then the applicant will have an additional 5 minutes for any rebuttal. Of course, you have the option to extend time as you see necessary, and following the rebuttal time, you have the option to ask questions and have any remaining discussion before you take whatever action you choose to take.
Thank you. Will all representatives of the charter and those speaking opposition please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Representatives of the Fountain Lake Middle School, if you would, you have 20 minutes to start your presentation.
Good morning. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity here to present today. My name is Dr. Michael Murphy. I've served 32 years in education, the past 17 years at a district level, and I am very honored today to kind of describe to you the vision of learning for the Fountain Lake School District. I've been blessed with the opportunity to lead the Fountain Lake School District for the past 2.5 years. And so what I'm going to describe to you is the journey that the district has taken over the last 10 years, in which it started with an engagement process of the community, students, and administrative leaders to try to formulate a very student-centered approach to education. And so with that, the overall mission of the district is for the Fountain Lake School District joins with the community to inspire, motivate, and prepare every student to be a competent, productive, knowledgeable, goal-oriented citizen. And our vision in that regard to follow with the mission is supporting every student every day for success. As educators, we know the challenges that we face providing services to individual students. Today, we are going to describe to you the approaches that have been utilized, and we seek the continuation of waivers and flexibility to design the student learning environment that we feel best serves our community. It's my privilege today to introduce our building principal, who has served in this capacity the past 9 years and has led the middle school to where it is today in this renewal process. That individual is Mr. Frank Janaski, and I'm going to turn the podium over to him.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First off, thank you for the opportunity for us to share our success story over the last 4.5 years. We've done a lot of great work with our kids, our teachers, and our staff, and our parents. So we're very pleased and very proud of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 4.5 years. The mission at Fountain Lake Middle School is to provide our students with the knowledge and skills in preparation for high school, college, and career readiness. Our motto, like the district, preparing every student every day. And when you walk into our building, you're going to see those words that simply say, every student, every day. Because that's the mission for us. We're here to work for all of our kids, regardless of where they're coming from, academic ability, because what we're looking for is to see some success. So that our kids walk out of the middle school in the 8th grade, they know they have a chance to do high school better, make some career plans, because we started those career plans back in the 5th grade. And that's probably one of the most unique parts of what we're going to do. So a little bit about the district itself. We are just to the northeast of Hot Springs. We call ourselves kind of a bedroom community. We don't have any real, we'll call it industry per se. Hot Springs being very much into tourism. Most of the industry is outside of our district. We do have a very large retirement community with Hot Springs Village. The district serves approximately 1,400 students. Currently my enrollment's probably right around 417 students, grades 5 through 8. We serve a population that's approximately 52 to 57% free and reduced. That percentage would probably increase just a little bit if I could get all my kids to remember to bring those papers back in. If you've been dealing with school districts, then you understand that problem as well. Our goal is to serve all of our students. When we started down this path 4.5 years ago, we were looking to do school differently. Because of your opportunity and chance, we've been trying to make that a reality. So the design for Fountain Lake Middle School, we want our kids to be on track for college and career readiness when they leave the 8th grade. We want them to have an opportunity to receive high school credit in middle school. We want them to have exposure to a variety of professions. We want them to have chances to excel in STEM, fine arts, accelerated academics. We want to prepare them for the soft skills, so we have them participate in a character education. We want them to demonstrate and apply and engage in 21st century skills. We're not talking about 21st century skills, and people are still saying, hey, we have to get our kids ready for the 21st century. I got news for you, it's almost 2019. We're in the 21st century. Hopefully at this point in time we begin to figure out what are they going to need in the middle part of the century. Experience, extended learning time through project-based classes. Now you're also going to hear me refer to them as experience-based classes. So I don't want to confuse you if I'm going in two different directions, but experience-based and project-based in my world is the same thing because it's hands-on. It's an opportunity for you to succeed. It's also an opportunity for you to fail and then figure out why you failed. And that's usually one of the greatest things I get to hear some of my kids talk about. And you'll see some of those in our presentation. And of course, the personalized learning. Oh, sorry. As you look at our school data, it's going to reflect some of our goals. Our goals were to meet and exceed the state average. Math performance, and you're going to see it's 4 levels at this point in time. The bottom unit is the PARCC assessments, and the top 3 of our ACT Aspire. And this is going to be our comparison building-wide. These are our ELA performance. Once again, park on the bottom. And the reason that you don't see anything at the top is those numbers haven't been released yet. I can't pull you to see that ELA based on Aspire. And then our reading goals. You know, through the endeavors and hard work of our teachers, our students, and our community, our schools earn a rating of B. I think I'm somewhere about just under 1.5 to 2 points from that A. And just like you, I want an A. You know, it becomes that competitive nature, but we're doing great things in our school. We see what we're doing, and as I follow cohort groups from beginning to end, I'm watching growth. I'm watching our students grow from the time that they started in the 5th grade until the time that they exit. These are some of our MAP data from NWEA. These measures of annual progress. The yellow is the beginning, which is fall, and then our test in the spring. And as you look at some of this information, once again, here's reading, you're going, interesting that you have a digression of the starting. But we've also included more students in our school coming in. But once again, we're also working on that goal of growth. What can we do to get kids to grow and be prepared when they walk out our door? In the 8th grade, I probably am serving half of my students in Algebra 1. And so a class of about 100, 110 kids, half of those students are prepared and ready to take Algebra 1, and they're being successful. We believe part of that is also through that aspect of what we do with hands-on learning and the communication of being able to talk to kids about reality, okay? Being able to use those real-world projects to full term. We started this journey with the ability to teach the soft skills necessary for students to be successful. In the photo, you're going to see kids collaborating together. Now, they're kind of intrigued about what's going on, but they're not arguing. They're collaborating. They're talking with each other and trying to figure out, and the solar system is on the ground, and why there's heat coming out of that light.
Mr. Janaski, could you
Yes.
get a little closer to the mic?
I'm
I think
sorry
we have
about
some
that.
audience. Thank you.
Now, I'm used to talking loud, so
Yeah.
it's all right.
Got-
I understand. We've provided time for students to work in a digital world. We've provided a one-to-one Chromebook for our students in grades 5 through 8. Our district has spent resources on making sure that our kids have access to internet without dropping. Our kids are prepared to take MAP tests online. Our kids have been prepared to take the ACT Aspire online. Our kids have skills that are preparing them for 21st century jobs. We are having communications with parents and students and stakeholders about the jobs that are going to happen. Now, if you have a 5th grader or you've got a grandson or a granddaughter, every 5th grader who happens to be somewhere between the age of 9 and 10, this time of the year, it's, well, I want to be an NBA basketball star. Okay? 2 months ago, it was, I want to be an NFL star. Okay, or a cheerleader. So we're trying to have a communication with our kids of, hey, what are you interested in? Well, I like, and we go from there. If you're able to get a 5th grader to kind of say, oh, well, you know, I'd like to be a football player. Okay. That's not out of the realm of possibilities, and I don't care if you're only, 3 feet tall. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a nurse. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a tattoo artist. Well, those are all great careers, and you're giving us lots of ideas, because then we're going to try to go find those careers to bring in and have those conversations with kids. I'm going to tell you about the jobs that I do, and we're going to let you ask some questions. What does it take to be that position? What does it take to be a police officer? What does it take to be an engineer? What does it take to be a doctor? What does it take to be a construction worker? We've created an advisory class built on the habits of Stephen Covey's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. Each day, our kids start off with a 20-minute class, and we talk about goal setting. We talk about ways to be proactive. We talk about ways to be collaborative with each other. We talk about soft skills and how you need to interact with each other and with adults or kids or community members. How do you need to present yourself if I bring in a guest speaker who can stand on stage to tell you a little bit about the careers that you're going to think about? We do synergy assemblies to look at student data, student performance, and these are guided by our students themselves. Every student's being given the opportunity to lead and present. That to us was one of the important factors of having that oral communication as a factor for all the kids leaving the middle school. That was a half credit that they got to have on their high school transcript. During our advisory, we also have conversations about what interest do you have? Where do you want to go? Maybe you've already started a conversation at home about being in college. Maybe you've already started a conversation about working for dad or mom or following in their footsteps. We're trying to get students to tell us a little bit about where they're trying to go. And once again, I get a 5th grader's plan is much different than an 8th grader's plan. But it's so much better to walk out of the middle school in the 8th grade and have a plan. I've looked at way too many kids in 9th and 10th and 11th grade who still don't have a plan. So we're trying to give them a thought, a plan, those skills to be proactive, to begin with the end in mind, and of course to have that win-win. So why do we want to continue? Why do we want to make our school better? So we want that flexibility to continue to do what we've done over the past 4.5 years. We want to be able to expose kids to career orientation, to offer them the ability to have a better life. But we want them to have that ability to work together, work collaboratively. Our schedule allows our kids to do things a little differently. The 20 minutes in the morning with advisory every day. We've built in an intervention time into our day. We're looking at trying to figure out a way to strengthen kids who have it and yet build the gaps for those kids who do not. We're looking for the flexibility to continue those 21st century skills by embedding keyboarding into our classes instead of that standalone class. Those are very important to us. We'd like to be able to continue the flexibility and incorporate an individualized success plan. Now, during this advisory, our students have been creating a portfolio, and this portfolio is designed to follow you all the way through the middle school and into high school. We started off using Google Sites. We struggled for quite a while trying to get it developed, kind of look like what we wanted to. We've done some experimenting and some research. We found a site called Seesaw. So right now our students are all putting material into what they call their Seesaw account. And by material I'm talking about whether it's artwork or work they're doing in a project class or work that they're doing as just homework. Good work, bad work. But it also includes those grades. Because twice a year we're going to sit down and we're going to have a student-led conference. So we're going to invite you to come into the school, and instead of that typical parent-teacher conference, we're going to do a student-led conference. So with those habits in mind, we're going to sit down and say, these were my goals at the beginning of the year. This is where I'm at. So you're having this conversation with an adult. Now, right now, I probably got about 50% of my parents coming out to see their kids. And if the parents don't make it, we'll get an adult there. I'll show up. Another teacher will show up. Dr. Murphy will come in and sit and be that adult, just so that kid can present where they're at, what they've done, and then you get to say, well, what do you want to do from here? And then we roll with that. We see the benefit of our kids going through these habits, being able to lead, being able to talk about their own data. So there's the waivers that we've asked for in the past and would like to continue with. These are some of the classes that we've been able to offer through these last 4.5 years. Some of them are through Project Lead the Way. Some of them were designed by teachers, and we trained our teachers through East Corps. And East came through our school and taught our teachers how to be facilitators instead of just teachers. And a lot of times, if you've been a teacher, it's very hard to give a kid the opportunity to screw something up. The ability to hand a 5th grader a scalpel and say, here's a brain, you get to dissect this. And they are all excited, regardless of whatever smell's coming off that brain. They're going, one hand and cutting in the other. When you look at them and you've explained to them about gears and wheels, and you say, hey, I need this gear to make this car go. Okay. And 15, 20 minutes later, they're still scratching their head, but they have poked, prodded, tried to figure out why this gear doesn't turn this wheel. It's really cool to watch. We have given the kids the ability to say, hey, what other courses would you be interested in? So as you're looking on here, jazz band. So our 6th graders start band our students start band in the 6th grade. So in 7th and 8th graders said, well, we'd like to see about maybe a jazz band. One band director said, okay. So based on their student voice, we created the jazz group. The service projects class were also requested by those students. Service project classes have a variety of kids who are looking for ways to improve other organizations. I've had kids want to raise money for the Humane Society. I've had kids who wish to go to one of the nursing homes to present Christmas cards or Christmas gifts. The teacher gives them the latitude to think of the project, lay it out, figure out if there's any cost involved, then they have to do the presentation before they can move anything else. Our kids are thinking, our kids are creating, and our kids are doing. So to us, that was one of the things that we were talking about innovation. And we're talking about middle school kids. We're talking about kids who are 9 and 10, anywhere between 13 and 15 years old. We're giving them a chance to experience learning in a whole new way.
Mr. Ness, you have a
Yes,
couple,
sir.
2 minutes remaining, but
Okay.
you'll have an additional 5 minutes after,
Okay.
unless there's any opposition.
All right. Well, now you're going to get to watch a little bit about our school, which is always so much easier to do if you're looking at it. The pictures were taken by some of my digital photography students. Some of the other material was caught off of our news broadcasting team. And best way to do it is just sit back and watch.
Hi, and welcome to the Fountain Lake Cobra Digital Prep Academy 2018 Showcase. We hope you enjoy touring the classrooms and seeing the projects the students have created this year. Enjoy your lunch and have a great afternoon. Go Cobras!
Much of what you've seen is what we've produced for our kids for a showcase. And those showcases have occurred at the end of each of the years as our charter. So we've invited our parents, our community to come to the school to see what our kids are doing on a daily basis. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share this success story. Thank you for the opportunity to work at doing school differently. And I'll be honest with you, my kids wouldn't know what to do if this isn't what school looks like for us. It would be like going back in time. And I think they only want to do is go forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Janaski. Ms. McLaughlin, is there anybody here to speak in opposition? Okay. So I think you've got an additional 2 minutes or so if you need to close out anything, or if you're ready for questions.
We can take questions.
Okay. All right. So we'll start over here with Dr. Kremers. If you have questions for the applicant.
No specific questions. I would just like to comment. I visited Fountain Lake Middle School, and thank you for the tour and for further information about how you've kind of rearranged the day and the schedule and the waivers and why you are requesting those that you are requesting, wanting to embed some of the classes that are some of the required courses and kind of the rationale for that. So thank you for all the explanations. You have great things happening, and especially the incorporation of technology into all of the different projects and courses that the students are doing. So just my appreciation for my time there and good things that I saw.
Well, thank you.
Dr. Williams?
Yes, just looking at your scores, they're good, okay.
Thank you.
And looking at all the career exploration and opportunities that you all are providing for your kids, how are you doing all that? Maintaining the high academic achievement level. We see a lot of schools that are struggling that come before us. So what's the mix here? You're creating all these opportunities for kids in various areas, and yet you're maintaining a fairly high level of academic achievement.
I'll be honest with you, we have great teachers who have bought into this. So it's not just creating these project classes, it's also about taking those projects and tying them to what they do in a core class. It's learning how to do the research, it's learning, because when you're talking about creating some of these classes or doing a broadcasting class, you have to read and write and research and, you know, and then stand there and present, and then with a camera in front of you, and it's good. You know, teachers buy in, and kids have bought in, and so have their parents.
So all of these career exploration opportunities are all embedded with the core curriculum, basically.
Yes, sir. And then the other way is through these intervention and enrichment classes. We're looking for gaps. We're trying to figure out where your weaknesses and strengths are. So if you've got it, you're on grade level, and you're doing it, I'm going to figure out a way that I can enrich you, and I want to make sure that what you're doing is the next level. If you're struggling with reading, then I'm going to go down there and we're going to figure out how we can help you.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Rogers? Ms. Newton?
I do have a question. I commend you on the work that you've done. I think you have really shown that this model is adaptive and is working. But what's your greatest challenge in all the success that you've enjoyed in the scores? But what's your challenge as it relates to the charter? What would you like to have happened, or what would you never do again?
I would tell you that probably when we stood here and did this originally, we were looking, because we were missing 20%. Okay, we had 80% of our kids, according to ACTAP, ready to go. But what about the 20%? Because we said it's about all kids. So I'm still working on the all part. But when you watch that video, you're not going to tell me which one were my average, everyday kids. You can't tell me which ones were my GT kids or my special ed population, because every kid was involved. Every kid's doing, and that's probably the greatest thing I can tell you. But I'm still looking for all.
Are there any challenges around parental involvement?
No, ma'am. I mean, when the parents are there to visit and they are able to see, a lot of it is, hey, I use this program for work. One of our green architecture classes is using a CAD program, and the dad's sitting there going, yeah, I use this on a daily basis. And so there's relationships between what the kids are doing in school now, not just English, math, science, but there's that correlation, and they get it. So they understand what we're trying to accomplish. And those kids may not be having the questions about careers and those plans, but they're getting that when they walk out, and they're very glad that we're asking these questions now to 5th and 6th and 7th graders.
Mr. Wilson?
I would guess that your retention of your teachers is good. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir,
Are you
for the
able
most
to
part.
keep those good teachers from year to year and have them come back?
Yes, sir. I mean, probably like most districts, I think I replaced maybe 2 teachers last year. One of them through actually 3. 2 to retirement and 1 who decided to go to a different district. But it does take training back on our part, especially with some of those Project Lead the Way classes. But when we're interviewing, we're having those conversations too, because we lay it on the line and saying, you know, we try to do school differently, and are you willing to go and be trained on how to do this? And yes.
And one other question, do you have some way or do you have some opinion of how your middle school kids do in high school in the remaining years in the district?
I don't have a way to track that information. I do know that those kids do come back and visit us, and they're very happy that the fact that they've had the opportunities that they've had. A year passed when we did our conversion. High school came in and became Fountain Lake Charter High School, so they're also looking at doing school differently for them and giving those kids opportunities. Yes, sir.
I didn't know that. Thanks.
Okay.
I might add something that kind of I've observed in terms of statistical data regarding that is we're starting to see an increased trend of the ACT composite has not moved dramatically yet academically, but we have definitely seen a percentage of students that are career completers. It has increased by well over 20%. So we're getting a lot more students prepared for the workforce because they're getting into tighter paths and taking advantage of the National Park and the project-based programs we have also at the high school. So that would be an additional response to the impact of the middle school.
Okay, just I had a question around goals, just to make sure we're clear. So the goals that you had last year make sure I'm correct on this, there were 6 goals.
We added a component with science.
Okay.
Because that was one we were lacking, and when we originally wrote the goals, there wasn't anything for science.
Okay. And so there's basically the science related goal, and then there is,
Should be English and math.
yep, okay.
And then there's also that personalized learning, the character ed, that we make sure we're trying to keep our kids attached to our advisory program and setting those career paths.
So just the response was that you're keeping your goals 1 through 4, you're taking away goal 5, and then keeping 6 is now going to read.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because we got rid of the old end of course algebra.
And this is more just the goal, I guess, on a lot of these is achievement levels is to do better than state average. Is that something that you guys may look at in the future to say, not necessarily we want to do better than state average, but we want to do better than ourselves and
Right.
continue to grow? And so I see the growth things related to NWA, but that may just be something to consider in the future. Is there other questions about the panel members before I get into the waiver part of this? Okay, so just I know we've got some questions lingering around waivers. There's one specific to gifted and talented. Just want to make sure if Ms. Hyatt, if you'll come up and just help us walk through this to make sure they've got the appropriate request related to these waivers.
Sure. Mary Claire Hyatt, Arkansas Department of Education. There are a few outstanding issues on the legal review, but they're easy fixes. So on number 4, which is a gifted and talented program, they do need a waiver of the rules governing gifted and talented program approval standards, and they didn't request that waiver. So in order to fully effectuate it, they'll need to confirm that they want to seek that waiver now.
We need some,
Good morning, panel. Trip Walter, Arkansas Public School Resource Center. On behalf of the applicant, I would confirm that a waiver of the GT rules is requested.
okay. Then moving to teacher licensure.
Yes, on number 6, teacher licensure, they did ask for a waiver of the rules governing educator licensure. If they are having unlicensed teachers teach, they do not need a waiver of that provision. If they have licensed teachers teaching outside of their licensure area, they only need a waiver of section 7 of those rules, but they don't need a waiver of the entire rule. So just clarifying whether or not they need a waiver of section 7.
So,
Would clarify that Fountain Lake would like a waiver of just section 7, pardon me, the ADE rules governing teacher licensure.
Okay, and the last little thing is on number 7, which is under additional comments. So during the standards transition process, which I'm sure you guys are really familiar with now, we mapped Fountain Lake over to a waiver under the new standards of section 1A52, which is a requirement that you do 6 hours a day, 30 hours a week. That wasn't included in their renewal application. And so I need to know, 1, do they intend to keep that? And if they do, then there's a Arkansas code provision that goes hand in hand that they'll need, which is 616-102.
The applicant would request the addition of both of the waivers that Ms. Hyatt stated.
okay.
And that is all of the legal concerns. Oh, thank you. Okay. Back on teacher licensure, and this was completely my error. The applicant originally asked for 615-1004, and in my review, I told them that I thought they only needed the A part of that, which is why their response says they just want A. When I looked at it again, they actually do need a waiver of the entire code section. And so Tripp and I had talked about that, but I forgot to mention it here. So just verifying that it is the entire code section, not just subsection A. And I apologize for the error.
And the applicant would verify the requests a waiver of the entire 615-1004.
Okay, panel, you've heard the request modifications in terms of the waivers. Are there any other questions for the applicant or any discussion amongst panel members? All right, hearing none, I will accept a motion.
I move to approve renewal.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the renewal and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you all.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right, ready to move on to number 2. All right. Oh, yes, sorry. I'm messing up over here. Representatives of Fountain Lake, Dr. Murphy, we do have to let you know our reasons for voting, so I do apologize.
Hold on just 1 second.
Okay, Dr. Kramers?
I voted to approve the motion. The school leadership are showing strong academic gains, and I'm just supportive of the innovation that they are showing.
All right, Dr. Williams?
I support the motion based on the success of the programs, both academically and career exploration.
All right, Mr. Rogers?
I voted for the motion as I don't have any concerns with the charter school at this time.
Ms. Newton?
I voted for the amendment, for the amendment of the charter, and the reason being consistent progress and strong academic performance.
Okay, Mr. Wilson?
I voted for the motion to approve the renewal, and I'm very impressed with the academic performance that you all emphasized.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to our second action agenda item, request for district conversion charter school renewal, Warren Middle School. Mr. Ballard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reginald Ballard, Arkansas Department of Education. On January 16, 2014, the Charter Authorizing Panel approved the application for Warren Middle School. The charter is approved to serve students in grades 6 through 8 with a maximum enrollment of 450. Representatives of Warren Middle School are appearing before the Charter Authorizing Panel to request renewal of their current charter.
Okay. So all representatives of the charter and anyone speaking in opposition, please stand to receive the oath. All right, if you would raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. School presenters, you have 20 minutes. You may begin your presentation.
Good morning, and thanks for allowing us the opportunity to stand before you to hope to renew the Warren Middle School Charter. At this time, I will introduce the staff members that have joined us today. I have Ms. Rhonda Williams, who is our School Improvement Specialist, Ms. Tiffany Gaithan, the Warren High School Principal, Ms. Kathy Cornish, Warren Middle School Principal, Ms. Carla Wardlaw, Assistant Superintendent. I'm Brian Cornish, Superintendent of the Warren School District. I'm currently in my second year. I'm going to start off by looking at these slides. You can tell that Warren Middle School is a very diverse school. We have 36% African American, 25% Hispanic, and 38% Caucasian. I also want to run some numbers by you that's just in our district. We are 23.9% Hispanic, 33.5% African American, and 40.7% Caucasian. As you can see through this diversity, the Warren School District and Warren Middle School has no option but to be diverse in our learning. In order to reach the needs of all of these learners, we've got to have different approaches for different cultures and the different learning needs of all of the different cultures that we deal with throughout the day. 7 years ago, the Warren School District made a commitment to become a district conversion charter school. We believed then, and we still believe now, that students learn in different ways and students learn in different time frames. We know we're not where we'd like to be at this time, but through this presentation, we feel that we now have a systematic process in place that aligns our curriculum K-12, where our curriculum is actually student-focused, and we're serving the social and emotional needs of all the learners at Warren Middle School. We've recently implemented a personalized learning team that consists of K-12 teachers to align what we're doing in our district, and also that help build the culture within our school, as well as the unity with our school district by aligning our curriculum K-12 and having that personalized learning team come on board, and that consists of teachers from kindergarten through 12th grade. As the presentation is presented, I hope you will see that through our charter, we are able to offer our learners an education that is truly student-focused.
The mission from Warren Middle School is aligned with the mission statement that you see on the screen for Warren School District. Our goal is to create that learning environment that gives our kids the necessary skills to be productive as learners and as citizens. And it's our moral purpose to meet the need of all of our students and providing them with a personalized learning opportunity.
We are committed to do whatever it takes to teach students the necessary.
If y'all would just identify yourself, sorry.
Tiffany Gaithan, Warren High School Principal. We are committed to do whatever it takes to teach students the necessary skills for a productive life. Our focus is to meet each student where they are in their learning and ensure that they have mastered the skills necessary for a productive life. We have established a profile for graduates for the Warren School District. Our focus is to have our students graduate from Warren High School with the skills necessary to be solution managers, effective communicators and collaborators, responsible citizens, and lifelong learners.
Rhonda Williams, School Improvement Specialist. The components of personalized learning are standard-driven curriculum, instructional design, timely assessment system and feedback, learner-centered instruction, data-driven for continuous improvement, reporting and recording, and communication. This is our model that we use to implement personalized learning. We feel that this has unified our district K through 12. We started at the bottom, which was our school culture and our district. This involved things like our mission statement, our vision, our code of conduct, our standard operating procedures, and our habits of work. We wanted to have a growth mindset district-wide. The next thing that we did was identify our essential, supporting, and enduring standards. We wanted to know, the students to know what they had to do to master a goal and how they had to do that. We also, the next one was we wanted to create a scoring guide, teacher scope and sequence, and year-long pathways. This created transparency within our district. We also are working toward a guaranteed and viable curriculum district-wide. We did this through creating units that drive whole group instruction and small group instruction. We've created progression levels. The progression levels are levelized by basic all the way to application. We also created pre-assessments, formative assessments, and summative assessments. This lets us know where our learners are in their learning. Recording and reporting. This includes data walls, progression levels, year-long pathways, progress reports, report cards, reporting in hack and tack. This is all to have student ownership and transparency in learning. This model, again, has unified our district, K-12, and is student-focused and transparent. The research that we used was delivering on a promise, high reliability schools, formative assessments and standards-based grading, and the new art and science of teaching.
And I'm Kathy Cornish, principal at Warren Middle School. What personalized learning looks like at Warren Middle School and all of our schools is that students are given a progression level, or first they have a year-long pathway that you will see in the middle of the screen that is on the walls in every classroom that aligns what each student must be able to progress through to finish that pathway for the year. And in the top right corner are learner pathways that you will see in our video in a moment, a student explain how they know where they are in their learning and what they have to do to reach mastery of their learning goals. Also in the bottom right is another example of a pathway. Students are able to reassess and retest on skills. You will hear students talk about that in just a moment. And also in the top right is, and in the middle of the screen, top left, excuse me, is data walls where students are tracking their progress. Okay, and our video. It's got it.
Okay, I love personalized learning because it's just a lot easier to do. You always know where you're at. Your parents know where you're at. You know where to improve. And you just, if you mess up, you can always just go back, even if it's the final test.
I love personalized learning because it's easier to understand.
I like personal learning because just like Weston said, I never feel behind because I'm going at my own pace and I know exactly the things that I need to pick up on or work on a little bit more so that I can do my best to excel myself in my learning.
I like personalized learning rather than traditional learning because, say for example, I made a low grade on at a traditional learning school. I wouldn't know what I scored low in, but other than personalized learning, I would know where I messed up and what I need to work
I believe personalized learning has really helped our students. It gives them the confidence to succeed in their learning. They understand that whenever they might not know a topic or know a skill, that we can go back and we can pick that skill up. If they already have mastered that skill, then they get to move ahead to the next unit. I believe that this helps students gain success. It makes them feel empowered about their learning.
They never have to ask me what we're doing today because they already know it's on the progression level. And personalized learning is completely transparent. I was the teacher that I was going to shut my door and I was going to do my thing and to heck with everybody else. But once I started trying it and I implemented things here and there, my room transformed. I went from horrible classroom management and the kids hated my class. They never wanted to see me. I was mean. My class was too hard. I stopped and I took a step back and I said, okay, what the heck, I might as well try it. And I tried it and I started implementing it and I was meeting kids where they were and I was helping them grow and then they felt successful. Our kids are not scared of failure anymore because we have the opportunity to try again. You know, if they had given me a one shot at this job in personalized learning, they'd have fired me after the first month.
When I went to my traditional school, we didn't have a data wall or anything to keep up with our progress. So I would always be ahead of the other students, and I would always be held back because my teacher would be working with those certain students, and I wouldn't have the ability to move forward in any subject that I'm working on. So now that I'm at a personalized school where I can do whatever I need and I can move ahead in front of the other students and still know what exactly I'm working on while I follow my data wall.
What I like about our summative assessments are that you can learn each thing level, like by each level, and that if you don't get something, you can always go back and retest on that level so you would understand it.
So this is our year-long pathway for science, and as you see, she has it marked out from start to finish. And so I've colored in science, energy, practice, and force because we've already finished them too. But right now we're working on energy, and so I know that we're working on that one because I don't have it colored in. And this is our student progression level for the science energy process, which is the first one. And she has it marked from the level 1 quiz and level 2 and level 3 and then the final assessment. So on each one down at the bottom, she has it marked out, which is our evidence. So we know exactly what to do out of all of our options. And then here it has like the main standard for just that one level. So after I finish this one, I'll color it in, and then I'll move on to the next one. So I've already finished level 1, 2, and 3, and we finished our final assessment. But I haven't gotten my final score, so I'm going to mark that. But after I finish this, I'll move on. And on this one, you'll do the same thing. You'll look at your evidences, and I know where I'm at just based on where I keep up with it at. So I like these a lot because I'm never lost, and I know exactly what I'm doing as long as I mark my pathway.
Learning has just completely changed the way our students see education in Warren Middle School. It's instead of being all about grades, it's all about where that child is and what they need to learn.
And I hope you can see from the video that learning and teaching has transformed in our district and in our school. And that has taken time to develop and to change mindsets and to change what teachers were used to doing every day in a traditional model. And with that, when we talk about, we went to the approach of really wanting to focus on our academics at first, our first year, and we had a backup and realized there's a lot of culture building in this whole process too. And so not only do we now have a system built that honors the academic needs of students, but also the social and emotional needs. We have built around our vision competencies to help students be respectful, accountable, ready to learn and engaged, and what that looks like in each area of the building. And from there, that went to kids can earn points toward that and earn t-shirts and different rewards for their behaviors. You also see standard operating procedures of how we do business in the school every day in order for students to be ready to have ownership of their learning. We started a second breakfast program about 4 years ago, and it has tripled the number of students eating breakfast at school every day. We have a community service projects, which are a parental involvement team heads up, and our soup kitchen is one of the largest community service projects our students do. And that they go on Friday once a month, prepare the food. Saturday, they finish cooking it and take it out to the disabled and elderly community members. And so with that, in personalized learning, embedded into our units is opportunities for blended learning. Personalized learning at Warren Middle School and in the district is not about putting a student on a computer and saying your learning is personalized. This is only used if they need extra practice and if they are able to work ahead, if they can get some pre-knowledge going through the blended learning. Our goals that we set in our original charter, at that point in time, we kind of were going in, I think, blindly because there was not a playbook for us to go by. And when we set some of these goals and we started working the personalized learning system, we found quickly that some of them did not align. This goal was originally set with the PARC assessment in mind, and when that, as our assessments changed, our focus kind of changed. And so to kind of keep with this, we felt like we partially met it because our students are showing growth on their MAP and ACT Aspire assessments, but if also on the 8th grade component of the ACT Aspire, they give a National Career and Readiness Certificate where students would score on that. And we are showing over the course of years that our students are making growth toward being career ready. In addition to showing growth on our ACT Aspire, our weighted achievement scores and our where students are exceeding ready on the ACT Aspire are not where we want them to be, and we recognize that that is our reading levels that our students are struggling with, and I'll talk about in a few minutes what components we have put in place and have shown great increase this year. But we are showing growth. Over the last 3 years, we've been recognized by the Office of Educational Practices that we've done. Beating the odds in Southeast Arkansas, we were known for growth for our ELA, math, and reading over the last 3 years, and also high growth in reading and math. So we are proud of that. We know we are moving the mark and moving our students and all of our sub-pops. Our growth was above the 80th score right there within the 80 points. So we know we're making growth, but we know we still got some work to do. And reading levels, if you looked at our ESSA report, is what we feel is our root cause. This year we hired a reading strategist. We don't want to call it interventions. It's about giving kids new strategies for them to work toward improving their reading. And since implementing that in August, we've had a 45% increase in our reading levels. And 10% more students are reading on grade level. So we feel like now that we have our curriculum really strong, now we're focusing on different instructional strategies and learning strategies to help close that achievement gap that we have in reading. But on MAP, we do use that as a measurement tool of the number of students reading, meeting their learning goals or growth goals for MAP. They have met that in the math, and we are increasing gradually the number of reading that are meeting that number of reaching their growth goals. Compass Odyssey ended up moving to another platform, and we opted not to go back with Compass Odyssey because at that point in time it was really just being used as an intervention tool and not really being used to help progress monitor student learning. And then social emotional, I think this is one of our greatest achievements, is that since implementing the RARE chart with the social competencies and working with our students on the social and emotional development, we've had a 65% decrease in office referrals over the last 4 years. To help us align, and we have we went to a high reliability school summit this summer and noticed of how to help ourselves move forward in truly building a personalized learning systems where students can move throughout as they need to different grade levels. And within that, we felt like we have started self-assessing ourselves, and in there we have a lot of different components at level 1s, 2, and 3, which are foundational in order to get to a truly personalized learning system. And we are realigning some of our structures to reach that level. And so to realign our goals for what we're asking if our charter is renewed is to realign some of our goals. Of course, keeping our MAP goals, because that is something that we feel like has been successful in helping us monitor our students. But also is moving the number of students. We are doing well in our high growth quadrant on our S report, but not in the high achievement. And so our focus to increase those number of students in the high achievement status to go to the higher quadrant by 2% annually. And then, of course, increase our student engagement, which is through the ESSA report by 2 points each year, and decrease the number of office referrals also by 2% each year. And increase our students on grade level by 2% annually, which we feel like we are on a great track to reaching that already this year as one of our school improvement goals. And then again, creating that personalized learning to moving learners to reach the profile of our graduate that Ms. Gathan had talked about earlier.
You do have a few more minutes if you need additional time, or if not, we'll check. Is there any opposition? Ms. McLaughlin, are there anybody here to speak in opposition? Okay. Okay, not seeing any. You do have an additional 5 minutes if there's anything.
That video that you just watched, those learners that are in that video, this is all they know. They started this process in kindergarten, and they're now in the 8th grade. And this is the only educational system that they are accustomed to. They really don't understand a percentage scoring system of 70% or at 80%. They're about the 4-3-2 and about being able to reteach and reassess if they don't do well on an assessment. So I wanted to point that out as well, that the group that we originally started with, that was some of those kids there. Thank you.
If I might speak now, if that's appropriate.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I visited the school, and initially I chose to go to Warren because it was closer to where I lived. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to come. I was here on the board with Mr. Talbot, and the group from Warren came, and they had given it a lot of thought in terms of what they wanted to do, had visited another state, maybe California. Everything they've said is evident in the practices of the school. It's really a paradigm shift in culture, school culture. And I was very impressed. Ms. Cornish and I visited before we got started, and I thought, well, we'll see. And consistently, young people were able to articulate what they were doing, why they were doing it, why it made sense to them, where they needed help, where they needed to go back and rethink some things. And it was a logical approach and a practical approach that impressed me, because they knew what they were doing and why they were doing it, as opposed to this is what the teacher said. So they could go and chart their learning. I was very intentional in talking to different young people. There's a high population of Hispanic young people and families in the Warren area because of the farming, the agriculture there, and equally a high number of African American young people. But without exception, and I mean, it really, I knew you guys couldn't stage this, but without exception, each individual at in each classroom was able to give you a report of their progress, why I'm doing what I'm doing, the fact that I can go back and retest because this is not a skill that I'm necessarily competent in, and why it made sense, and even to the point of talking about how their parents understood what they were doing, what the needs were, and how they were. So they own it, and I guess it's because it started in kindergarten, but it's really, again, a paradigm shift in terms of how education is approached, and I can see certainly there's room for improvement in terms of scores, but this is something that I think is new and innovative. You say you don't have a playbook, but I think you're writing it as you go along, and it's going to be helpful to other districts. But the school culture, and I'm a social work by nature, so I look at the nuances around how kids feel, how they act, how teachers respond, and even the social aspect of the school in terms of behavior. You say your reduction in discipline was 65%. I can see it because I would stop and talk to young people and ask them, what are the expectations? How are you expected to behave, and what happens, and what's their relationship to you, and how you impact your peers? So they've taken on ownership of the education piece and of the social aspect of their behavior and how it relates to overall learning. The teachers enthusiastic. The new teachers and the seasoned teachers has the same enthusiasm, and that's different from what we see sometimes. So I'm impressed with the charter performance and the energy of the staff and the administration.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Wilson, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I think not, Mr. Chairman, but Ms. Newton's comments are a good example of why it's so important for several of us, if we can, to visit the schools. That makes a world of difference, and her comments make a world of difference too.
Mr. Rogers?
Not yet.
Okay. Dr. Williams?
Yes. You know, just given the fact, what caught my attention, this was good, but what caught my attention was your comment that this is all the students know, which is a good thing for them to know. Can you just give me a brief comparison between what it used to be as to what this program is doing now?
And I think before it was, the teacher knew what they were going to teach, and they knew it was just by a traditional, this is my lesson plan book, I'm going to come in, I'm going to put my objective on the board, I'm going to get up here and teach, and then you're going to take the assessment in a week,
Right.
and you're going to be given a grade, and that's going to be it. And then I'm going to move on to my next unit.
Right.
And it's just not like that anymore. And when you really think, because I was on the beginning end when we started kindergarten and first grade, and transitioned to the middle school about 4 years ago, it is just a shift in how everybody views teaching and learning. It's almost like when we were talking to some students before, and we were talking about, well, you know, some other schools don't do it like this. They're like, what? How do they not? How does a kid not know what they're coming to classroom and learning? You know, they know what they have to do. They don't understand that they're in some classrooms that doesn't happen. And they don't understand that they don't get a reteach or a reassess. And the great thing about it is when our progression levels are levelized that our students have, their test is levelized. So if I mess up just on the level 3 questions, that's all I get to reteach and reassess on. Okay. It's not, you know, it's not I'm given a 60 and I move on. And we spent the last 3 days of this week of students being able to go, okay, I have a 2.5 right now on an assessment. I want to go back and retry. I want to go back and rework on that and come back and bring my grade up. Okay. And you have parents now calling saying, hey, I noticed that they have this. What day are they teaching and reassessing?
Okay. Well,
one of the things I noticed that the student can't just decide tomorrow I'll retest. They have to demonstrate that they've made an effort to be able to master the subject matter. So it's not like, well, I didn't study and I'll do better, or I didn't sleep or whatever, but they have to prove that they can master. I mean, that not prove, but they have to demonstrate the things that they've done to go back and justify or deserve a chance to retake it.
That's good. Well, listening to the students was good, but the teacher sold me. You know, just the whole classroom management. We've talked a lot about the lack of some districts not being able to find good teachers or keep good teachers and so forth. But when you got a veteran teacher to say, this has helped me become a better teacher, that's saying a lot. Thank you.
Dr. Kramers?
2 comments and 1 question. One comment is just the congratulations that even though there is the D, you can see the growth happening, and I'm glad you're receiving the recognition from I believe is it U of A, education policy? Yes. So congratulations on the growth that you are achieving. Also on the career readiness certificates, I'm glad to see that you're focusing on that, the career readiness curriculum. Are you doing the certificates as a piece of that And is that through Work Keys 2.0?
In the high school, we do it through our vocational school, through CBA.
Okay, not at the middle school level. But, so the career readiness is,
We have a career development class at middle school, and one component that our parental involvement team, they host a career talk, and where students could put in different careers that they're interested in, and we'll have community members come in and do a lunch and talk with our students to start building that interest in different careers.
okay, that's great. With the high growth, and then knowing that you want to move towards the high achievement as the next step, kind of from what you're doing, and then what's the main strategies that you feel are going to help get you over the hump for the achievement piece following the growth?
A lot is looking at our instructional practices. What type of strategies are we using in the classrooms in order to reach the rigor that we need to? Are we exposing our students to those level of rigor questions that they need to be exposed to on our assessments? And then really changing the mindsets if a student is behind of something, saying you're going to go to intervention. No, let's give you some new strategies. Let's try some new strategies that are that can help you grow and help you get to that high achievement. So really focusing again on shifting some of our instructional practices and the strategies that we're giving students.
That's great, thank you.
Okay, so I also did have the opportunity to come visit your school, and that's not the first time I've been there to see what you guys do. I thoroughly believe that you guys are on the right track in what you're doing. I think there were some aha moments this summer when I was in attendance with you guys at the High Reliability Summit in Austin, and you'd made the comments that, you jumped right into probably a level 5 type work, not making sure that, the other levels were stabilized. And so it's very evident, when you're in any of the classrooms and checking out the buildings that you're seeing, that you do have that culture where, people know what they're supposed to be doing. They know how to do it, how to accomplish the work. There clearly is an instructional framework of how those things are going on. And then in terms of curriculum, you have that stuff laid out for people to do. There is, seen some little dips in test scores, and like we talked about on the visit, it's just, when you talk about big changes to what are you going to do to change to show improvement, in my mind, the answer to that is, we're not going to make any major changes. We're just going to go back and look, where are we missing it in terms of culture? What are we doing in instructional framework that we need to refine and get better at? And then in terms of curriculum, do we have the right curriculum at the right time, at that right level for that student to show? So it's just basically doing what you're doing and just constantly going back and refining your practices. And I know you guys are in the process of doing that and hope that that's going to pay dividends this year. So are there any impediments or anything else that's you feel like a challenge for you this year that you're seeing that may be a barrier to that work?
No, sir. I don't see a challenge at all. We're constantly using the plan, do, check, adjust, and our teacher retention at Warren Middle School has not been. What do you have? How many 1240s? 2 1240s. I think she replaced 2 teachers last year, so the retention at Warren Middle School is not an issue. We're constantly meeting and looking at where we can get better at what we're doing, as you just said. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel again, let's just get better at what we're doing, because we truly believe that this is what's best for kids in the Warren School District.
And, the other thing that you talked about, I think kind of touched on it, but just to also kind of reiterate or bring out is that, when those students are sitting down doing their work, they have, I guess, what you refer to as a proficiency scale. But it doesn't just stop at proficiency. It says, hey, if you're a student and you're doing work and you want to go above and beyond, here's what that next higher level of work looks like. And I think that's important to make sure that you're, trying to get that rigor in there for kids, and kids just aren't left to do what they, just to get that bare minimum, I guess. So I think that's a great approach. Any other questions from panel members before we go into waiver issues or any issues with the application? Okay, so we do have one question on the application itself as a remaining concern, and it refers to whether or not you guys had met goal 1. And so I don't know if we can have a representative from Charter Office or Ms. Hyde, if that's one of your listed concerns that we still have.
Good morning, Alexandra Boyd, Public School Accountability. I believe for this item, we've got feedback on goal number 1, but we never got specific feedback from the applicant about whether they felt that they met the goal or not. So I think we were just looking for a little bit more of a direct response from the applicant.
Okay. Yeah, if you could just speak to your goal 1 and how you feel like you've met that goal.
On goal 1, that was aligned to college and career readiness, and that was one of the first slides that we put up. Can I go back on this?
Yes.
Okay. And when we first looked at that goal, one of it was aligned to the PARC assessment when it gave feedback back on the college and career readiness. And so as we transformed into different state assessments, we feel like we may have partially met this one when we look at, like I said earlier, that ACT, National Career Readiness Certificate, that they report out for 8th grade on your ACT Aspire report, whereas we have increased the number of students moving up to that gold level, which is what you want each year. And in addition, we do feel like on our MAP assessment that our students are reaching proficiencies on the standards that they need to according to their growth goals.
Okay. All right, any questions on that one? Okay, we will move on to the waivers. I think there was just one issue related to transcripts. Ms. Hyatt, if you can help us with that one.
Mary Claire Hyde, Arkansas Department of Education. On the legal review, if you'll look at number 10, so they had a waiver of the law about transcripts. Mostly the law is related to providing electronic copies of transcripts and stuff like that. I just felt like, based on what they put on their legal review, the waiver wasn't necessary, but really wanted to give them an opportunity to provide some additional information because it may be necessary, and I just didn't get that from the legal review.
And I do believe on the original, we were sending out a standards-based reporting report card where it didn't have a letter grade assigned to it. In the course of our endeavor, our parents, when we first started at middle school, our parents were really new to the system. It wasn't like in elementary where they had been through the process, or like the students we have now that have been through the process of personalized learning and standards-based grading. They were new to it and did not really care for just a check-off sheet or saying I've mastered this. They more really wanted a letter grade at some point, so that's where we went through the process with in researching through Marzano's standards-based informative assessment and found a conversion chart that would convert over just for the unit assessment to where we could report out to A, B, C, or D on the report card for our parents because they wanted to know, do I take them out to ice cream or do I spank them? And so with that, our transcripts now have an A, B, C, or D. But as we move up the high reliability schools model and you get to level 5, they do advocate for a standards-based type, competency-based type report card. In the event when we get to that level, we will go back to possibly needing to report out on transcripts on a competency-based report card. So that's why we looked at possibly keeping that one in there.
Okay. So right now you do have the ability to do an electronic transcript as is,
Yes,
but
we
you
do.
want to maintain the flexibility for the future.
Right. Well, we will be able to even do an electronic transcript, so we may not need it because now eSchool does allow you to create competency-based report cards because we do for our elementary school.
And I don't think, based on my reading of the law, that anything in there prohibits them from doing an alternative grading scale. It just has requirements that there be an electronic transcript that be submitted to, like, the Department of Higher Ed, or upon request in an electronic format. And it's my understanding that you're now able to do that even with an alternative grading scale in the method that the department has. So that's kind of, because it doesn't talk about grading scales and have any of those requirements in this law. So that's kind of where my confusion was.
So is it that if you know, it could go either way, because I guess that you're saying in the future there may be an issue, but in that event you could come back and say, hey, the system's not able to do this anymore, we need to seek this waiver. So I guess it's kind of up to you how you would want to move forward.
Okay, based on Warren administration's comments, then we will not ask to have that waiver renewed, but as has been suggested, if there is a need in the future, then the district will come back and ask for the waiver again, or whatever's appropriate and necessary to help them do what they need to do.
Okay. All right, not seeing any other questions on the waivers. Is there any other questions by panel members? Not seeing any, I will, you've heard the matter and the request for the renewal, so I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make the motion. I move that we approve the application for renewal for the Warren School District's charter, conversion charter.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second to renew the charter. Any discussion?
Yes. I know that they asked for 5 years on there, and I've heard everybody say, I'm not, and this is really tough because I'm not trying to be against the school or what y'all are doing there, but when looking at the ESSA scores, you did drop a grade level. Your reading scores did go down from last year to this year. So I'm not against what they're trying to do, but I'm against the 5 years. I would rather see a 3-year renewal to allow them to keep doing what they're doing, but also to make sure that there is the growth and there is the achievement that they're trying to achieve at that school.
I stick with my motion with the expectation that the school accountability and other departments within the division would monitor that. And there's always the avenue to bring a charter back before the Board of Ed for review. And so my motion would remain for the renewal for the requested 5 years.
Okay. We have still a motion on the second. Any other further discussion before I call for the vote? All right, not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, we have motion passes to approve. If you would give us a minute, we're going to capture our responses here to give you a little bit of feedback. Okay, we'll start over with Dr. Kremers.
I voted to approve the motion to renew. The evidence of growth in student achievement is one of the primary reasons for renewal.
All right. Dr. Williams.
You're quicker than I can type. I support the motion based on the current approach of personalizing learning, supporting both the kids and the teachers.
All right, Mr. Rogers.
Like I said earlier, I'm not voting against the school or what they're trying to do. It was just against the 5-year renewal. That's the only thing.
All right, Ms. Newton.
I voted for the charter because I feel they're effectively meeting the challenges and needs of students and teachers.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
I voted for the motion. I am impressed with the growth and the academic achievement, as Dr. Kramer's pointed out.
Okay, Mr. Cornish, you heard the feedback. We appreciate your being here today, and thank you for you and your team.
Thank you all. Thank you, appreciate that.
Right, let's take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back at, what would that be, 10:08.
That's what he was doing.
All right, we're ready. Okay, we'll go ahead and continue the meeting. Next on our agenda is a request for district conversion charter school renewal, Academies of West Memphis. Mr. Ballard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reginald Ballard, Arkansas Department of Education. So on January 16, 2014, the Charter Authorizing Panel approved the application for the Academies of West Memphis. The charter approved the charter is approved to serve students in grades 10 through 12 with a maximum enrollment of 1,300. Representatives of the Academies of West Memphis are appearing before the Charter Authorizing Panel to request renewal of the current charter.
Okay, all right. Make sure I'm following my script right. Okay, would the members, those that are here to speak on behalf of the application and those that are here to speak in opposition, please rise to take the oath. Okay, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, presenters for the application, you have 20 minutes to present, and you may begin.
Okay. Good morning. 5 years ago, we stood in this very room, looked a little bit different than it does today. And we were the first school district in the history of the state of Arkansas to gain approval for an open enrollment conversion charter school to partner with a community college. To expand, the whole purpose was to expand career and technical opportunities for our children. I would like to think after 5 years, over 60 visits from other educational entities in the state of Arkansas, the state of Tennessee, the state of Mississippi, coming to see our place to try to replicate our model and what we've done. The testimony that you will hear today from our team has all been worked with. I like to say we were career and technical, went focused when career and tech wasn't cool. With everyone trying to come up with a new way to count to 5, we shifted our focus about 5 years ago, essentially out of heartbreak, out of necessity, and out of a realism. When your community is left at the altar not once but twice by Toyota for a super site selection, you have two choices. You can either accept it and bury your head in the sand, or you can do something about it. We chose the latter. We didn't know then what we know now, that competing for an economic development requires more than having a mega site that's shovel ready. These companies are starving for a highly skilled and motivated workforce. They have internal metrics that they sometimes won't share with communities or with school districts. We have the benefit of having our local economic development director serving on our school board. Potential for growth, adult literacy rates, median household income, how many people own a car, how many homes have 2 or more children, what are the retail trends. Many prospective companies are home-based abroad, not even here in the United States. Oftentimes, these folks know more good and bad about our communities than we know about ourselves. We know that a higher skill set equals a better opportunity for a better job, and over the course of a working lifetime, more financial gain. Skills, jobs, money, all equal a thriving economy. What we've attempted to do with our model is to see the need and spark the desire. Along the way, we've seen growth in our numbers and interest. We've seen an increased motivation to read and an increased motivation to even read better. We are creating efficiencies and serving a broader region regarding career and technical education development. When you live in the shadows of Memphis, Tennessee, we are really serving more than just our community. We are serving a regional development approach. That is the true scope of our work at the Academies of West Memphis. The burning question from all industry, where will the workforce come from and how do we get them trained? Ultimately, when this is all said and done, what do we want folks to say? We made a difference in someone else's life. We did something that mattered and contributed with a servant's heart. Giving kids a better chance, an unfair advantage is what we like to say in West Memphis. In life, at skills, certificates, job training and opportunities, not just a diploma in a sleeve. That's our story, that's our charge, that's our mission.
We hope that you see it the same way and grant us reauthorization to continue the great work in the Delta region of the state of Arkansas. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gary Jackson. He serves as our high school principal.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. We are a regional model due to proximity being next to a large metropolitan area, our connection with ASU Mid-South, the industry that serves in the area where our kids work, and we're trying to produce the skills that they need to get those jobs. No one else in our region, and I'm not sure even in the state of Arkansas, has the ability to replicate what we're doing in West Memphis from a career technical, also aligned with our community college for concurrent credit, and those students can overlap at the same time so we can concurrent and do technical at the same time. We have approximately 1,100 students. We're 100% free and reduced. It's all about college and career pathways. As Mr. Collins said, what advantages can we give our students when they leave our building? That's all we're looking for, is an unfair advantage for our students. What does a day in the life look at a student like when they come to the academies of West Memphis? If I arrive at school, we're an 8-period-a-day school. We have students that arrive at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's 3 opportunities during our school day, 3 different transitions: a first and second period transition, a third, fourth period transition, and a 6th and 7th period transition. Our students have the opportunity to transition twice a day to the community college. If I come to school first period and I go out there, I'm out there for a 90-minute block. A student gets on the bus and in 7 minutes they're sitting in a college classroom, whether it is taking concurrent credit or they're sitting in a technical course with diesel mechanic, hospitality, or welding. If they're there for a second period, they're out there all morning. They stay there the second exchange, which is third and fourth period. Then they will transition back to the high school and take their math and literacy classes there. So it's interchangeable. We send about 550 to 600 kids a day each day to the community college and transition from our building to theirs, and by proximity, they can be in that classroom where there's not that much loss of downtime, maybe a couple minutes. Our preparation for our students before they come to the academies of West Memphis, we introduce the model to them in 8th grade. They get an opportunity to visit ASU Mid-South. They get to go out and put their hands on the toys. They see the welder. We have welding simulators. They see the hospitality room, the big trucks, diesel mechanics. We live at the crossroads of America. We live by the Mississippi River. We have FedEx. You look at I-40 and I-55 North, the number of trucks that go through there, the opportunities and employment opportunities that are needed in this area. We're trying to produce those skilled students to be able to fill those. In the 9th grade, we continue with an academy showcase where they're actually on campus and they're looking again. In the spring semester, our sophomore counselor will go out and we start sharing with them the opportunities of class and scheduling and asking them to try to look at a 4 or 5 point focus of what it is that they want to do. Sometimes it's difficult to get a 9th grade student to understand what they're doing. I know if you have a child that goes to college, sometimes they're not sure. But we want to expose our kids to as many opportunities. It's just as important to find out what they don't want to do as it is what they do want to do. Once we get that, we look at the pathways, we start talking about opportunities, how we can get them there. Is this a path that they want to navigate, not one that we provide for them? But what is it that you want to do? Before a student steps on the campus at the academies of West Memphis, we know our kids. Number one, we look at their summative ACT Aspire interim scores. We have their ELA data where they read. We understand their DRA scores, what grade level that they read on. We have their STAR reading scores and their STAR math scores. So when the students hit the ground the very first day, our teachers are not reaching and grasping to identify where their students are. They understand where the learning takes place and try to tie that in to make sure that learning is relevant. Sometimes we have to spiral backwards and reach to where our kids are, and that's okay. When you look at the remediation opportunities that we have at the academies of West Memphis before they reach our campus again, number one, we do have a literacy problem in eastern Arkansas, and we've addressed that with Critical Reading 1 and Critical Reading 2. We could stood at the high school and continue to complain about kids coming to us and they weren't college or career ready or they didn't read on level, and we could do something about it. We chose the latter. We implemented Critical Reading 1. The second year we added a second Critical Reading teacher for Critical Reading 2. And we're getting ready to enter a third critical reading because we're pushing Critical Reading 1 down to our junior highs to address the literacy rates before our students have an opportunity to come to the academies. We also understand that foundational math skills are not where they need to be when they come to the 10th grade. Remember, we are a 10th, 12th building. Our students are taking their algebra courses in 9th grade, and so when they come to us, we understand where their scores are. We just can't start with Algebra 2 right where we are. We have to spiral back to where they are. So they have an Algebra 2 class and an ACT math that touches on those foundational skills while they're taking those concurrently. We tutor before school from 7 to 8, after school from 3:45 to 5:45, on Saturdays from 8 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, and on Sunday afternoons from 1 to 5. Anytime on a Saturday, you could see up to 250 to 300 kids coming in to receive tutoring, and yes, on Sundays they come in as well. Our teachers, our focus, our building and district leadership team are constantly meeting to try to remove the deficiencies and the barriers that keep our kids from being successful as far as reading, because it is the route that crosses every area that we go to. We also reteach and retest when a student does not have success. We go back, spiral back, go over the essential skills again, and talk to our students and make sure that they fill those deficiencies. We retest, don't like to average those scores in. That student scored well enough to move on, and we move forward. The last one, if a student does fail a class, we do not wait for summer school. We have a credit recovery lab. We incorporate that into their schedule at that time right there, and we start recovering that class immediately. We do that through a web-based program with Edgenuity. Our partnership with Arkansas State Mid-South is very unique. As we said, our kids can be on their campus in 7 minutes in a classroom. There's not much downtime. We have weekly attendance reports. As you know, we transition our kids out by buses, but we also give the kids the liberty, if they drive, that they can drive to college campus. Sometimes in 7 minutes, a lot of things can happen. So it's a weekly monitoring system that we have on attendance between the academies and ASU Mid-South. We get a weekly grade report, just as we do, as we send out to our teachers and our parents when they look on HAC with the Home Access Center, where our parents can look at those grades as well. We monitor and we evaluate and we modify and we change. We do not wait 5 to 6 weeks before the problem occurs and then try to address it at the end of the 9 weeks or a semester. We have 3 career coaches that work and are liaisons between the academies of West Memphis and ASU Mid-South. They constantly monitor student success, attendance, their grades, any issues that may go on with a high school student. They're the liaison between the academy's administration and ASU Mid-South, and also between the academy students and ASU Mid-South as well. When you look at our enrollment, in the last 4 years, we've had 2,674 kids that were enrolled, a yearly average of 668 kids, either going over and completing for concurrent credit or in career and technical classes. Our general education is, our 4-year total is 403, the yearly average is 101. Certificates of proficiency in technical programs, which means they are ready to enter the workforce right now. In a 4-year, we've had 467. We average 117 per year with a certificate. And the big buzzword we're hearing now is making sure that those are industry recognized certificates, so when our kids go out, we do have that unfair advantage. Credits earned through the career and technical programs and general education through the academies of West Memphis and ASU Mid-South, our 4-year total, 16,764, an average of 4,491 per year. That's impressive. Some of the stories, someone always asks, those are cool classes, what's going on? What are some of your kids doing? In the last couple years, we've had Jeremy Page, who left our aviation program, who is now in California working with the FedEx family. Summer Abrams, one of our first female diesel mechanics, who realized that she could assist her family by being a mechanic and working on that, and also realizes by the money that she's earning that she can go back to school and provide for herself and maybe not have to take out a student loan, who's not only providing for his family, but she's taking care of herself. Last week, we bumped into Nick Thornton, who is out of our welding program. Nick works with Co-Built out of Memphis, a student who didn't want to have anything to do with education. You see him in Walmart. He's successful now. He's a welder and a fitter. He's making $25 an hour with a certificate earned through the academies of West Memphis and ASU Mid-South. There are many other stories of kids coming through. What we're looking for is to make sure that we help students navigate a path in which they choose, and that is very important. The physical changes in our building that's made it attractive for our students. We've updated the lighting, ceilings, painted the classroom, hallways. It's a very prideful place. We've had several members also visit our school as well. We restructured the business classes that we offered at our school. We were still offering classes that were probably taught when some of you were in high school. And so instead of asking the very smart people and the adults in our building, we ask our kids, what is it that you want to do? We realize that our kids, what they want to do now is something with a screen, because they're not teenagers, they're screenagers. And if it doesn't involve the screen, they're probably not interested. When we started looking and we took into account what our students said, we still offered the continuous of accounting, but blueprint, computer business applications, computer science coding, cybersecurity, supply chain management, legal aspects, robotics, social media, supply chain management. We also incorporated through some of the waivers that we had earlier with our criminal justice system, Foundations of Law. Our criminal justice teacher is a 29-year member of the Memphis Homicide Division. He understands. Our kids will go around campus, and we have crime scenes on our campus that our kids will photograph, look at, detail it, come back and try to determine what took place at that crime scene. That's a bell ringer. Our kids love it. It's such a great class. Our teachers sit in on that class. Our service industry, obviously, we're right next to Memphis, a lot of nice restaurants there. Food safety, family and consumer science, addressing those, also with our partnership where our kids are cooking and learning. One of the classes that we'll be looking to put in is forensic food, understanding how to mix the spices and going through all that. And then last but not least, the military with our junior ROTC program, which provides many opportunities for our kids through the ROTC program. At the academies of West Memphis, I want to point out to you, we recognize we have a D on our school report card, just as you did. We have 3 junior highs that feed our building. One of our buildings sends the kids to us college and career ready at 33%, one's at 9 and one is 7 that they're ready. That's what we get. Students are on our campus for 534 days during their high school career. Our score is based on 153 of those days. We own that score. We don't run from that score. We're addressing the issues, but we also understand this. That student's going to have to walk out of our building, and there's not another building that they're going to walk into. There must be something in their toolkit that we're preparing them for. So that is one data point. Now, when we go back and we look at what we're doing, I want to point your attention to 2016-17 value-added growth at 82.5%, and then the 17-18, we're at 80.67. We're also recognized in the top 10 by the Office of Educational Policy by the University of Arkansas, being a top 10 in the state for growth in poverty schools. Our special education growth, which has also been a focus, because the real reason has been this. When a student graduates from high school, there is no special ed line. There is no 504 area, and we've addressed those areas with those students as well, trying to provide skills and opportunities to prepare them as well when they reach the workforce. In 2017, our SPED weighted achievement score was 7.35. The following year, you see it was 14.13. A focus of bringing those kids in, teaching those skills that they need, that they can be self-sufficient on their own. Our graduation rates are going up. In 2017, our 4-year cohort was 85.31. Our 5-year cohort was 87.28, and in 2018 again, our 4-year was 86.31 and 88.51. We are a regional hub in our area, providing skills for our kids through career and technical, and also addressing concurrent and students who want to go to college, and both of those that can be married. It's important to understand that our kids can crisscross those 2 programs. You're not tagged into one program. We're not just at a high school offering cool classes. We're a high school that's offering kids cool opportunities for careers once they leave our building. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You have 2 additional minutes, but then you'll get an additional 5 minutes after that. Do you need any additional time you need right now?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody speaking in opposition to the application? All right, not seeing any. You do have an additional 5 minutes if you wish to use that. Nope. All right, we'll move into questions. We'll start over with Mr. Wilson.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm gratified to see Mr. Jackson, Ms. Wagner, and some of the other folks I met during my visit over there in the summertime. I was galled that West Memphis came over to Jacksonville and beat us the following week, but I'll get over that. As I mentioned with respect to Ms. Newton's comments a while ago, a visit to the school tells you an awful lot, and I learned an awful lot from the folks there at the Academies of West Memphis. It was a real good experience for me. I'm not sure it was for them, but still, I was very impressed with the work that goes on there, the collaboration between ASU there in West Memphis and the charter school. That's a huge plus in my mind. I visited briefly with the instructor there in the cybersecurity program, and that was hugely informative. As it happened, my own local school district is beginning a cybersecurity program, and talking to Mr. Jackson and his folks into coming over there and exporting the knowledge that you all have gained there in that program out of your district into ours, and that was really a good thing. That's a lot of editorial comment. The main thing I'm impressed with in your presentation and in your work is the growth rate. That speaks volumes to me, and so that's not much of a question, I guess, is how you like that, but that's my thought, my comment about that visit.
Okay. All right. Ms. Newton, questions? Mr. Rogers?
I'm not gonna wait like I did on the last one. So you addressed it before, in the drop in the grade score. And then really when I was looking at it, when I studied at the S scores, the drop in your reading scores, that really concerned me. In 17, it was 30.86, and then 18, it dropped to 19.74. So if you could just talk to me a little about that and how you're going to address that, because that's, you know, if you're not reading at grade level, then all the other great things that you're trying to do, you're going to continuously struggle to do. So if you could just talk to me a little about that.
Absolutely. I believe it was 2 years ago, Mr. Collins?
Yes.
2 years ago, when we sat down as a district, we had the impression that our kids were readers, that we were on level readers. We collected data, and we had every administrator in our district, every literacy coach in our district, assistant superintendents, every person that made a decision where they're spending money or where we were spending our money was in that same classroom. At that time, we had 8 elementaries, 3 junior highs, and 1 high school sitting in the same classroom, and we put the data on the wall, and we peeled it back by grade level. And what we thought and what was actually going on were 2 different things. We were making some decisions based on what we thought instead of what data was. And when we appeared and we looked and we saw that our children were reading below grade level, we started addressing at that time. We have DRA tested approximately 4,000 plus students in our district now to understand where every kid is on their reading level and addressing that every day. We're not waiting for elementary teachers to do that. At the secondary level, when we become content heavy, we also got to be reading coaches as well. And we're addressing that every day in our class with our critical 1, critical 2. We pushed that down to the junior high. They're addressing it as well, and we're looking for a critical 3. We can't allow a 6-year window of kids to come through and we're waiting on someone to address the problem for us.
And, can I ask one more? And then when you were talking about the career planning for students with disabilities, could you expand on that just a little bit?
I know that we use the rehabilitation services, CDTI, okay, and we use those, and I know that several of our students have gone through those services after they've left the academy and also being served while they're on our campus. It's beneficial. I think it's directed toward that to best serve them.
I have one comment to that. I think the variety.
If you would, just into the microphone, because we have live stream. Thank you.
To add to the special need conversation, I think you have to look at that on an individual basis. Are we talking about severely self-contained children that are nonverbal, low functioning, that need assistance all day long?
or are we talking about the child that's just right under the bubble from being in mainstream? There's two totally different avenues of services for those children, and you run the spectrum of folks in between. We can show you testimony that we've had welders that lay their head down in geometry class and fall asleep and slobber on the desk, but you put them in a welding class, and you give them a skill and a trade, and they can go out and within 3 years gross $80,000 because that's what they're good at. So I think you have to look at that on an individual basis as you go and address that as it comes up, because there's a variety of needs when we talk special needs kids in that subpopulation.
All right, Dr. Williams?
Excuse me. A great program. My only concern as I was listening is along the lines with Mr. Rogers, was just the overall D grade. What was and this maybe someone from the department can help here, what was the previous score before this year? It looks like you all have, I was concerned about the reading score. As a matter of fact, I even made a note that that you all are working on both the reading and the math piece. Mm-hmm.
It was a C last year.
It was a C last year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're in the neighborhood. You're hanging out with Mr. Rogers there. Okay. All right, then, that was really my concern. I just wanted to make sure, I think it's the right program. I understand about Toyota when they first came over and they left and so forth. So I think this is the right program to create opportunities for students to go on both tracks. Matter of fact, when you was talking about the career technical piece, I was going to ask you about the college prep, and then the next thing you talked about that piece also. So I guess all that said and done, then I don't have a question.
All right, Dr. Kramers?
Just a few comments. Of course, with career and technical education, I'm pleased at the focus for that because there are so many avenues for students to achieve success. And I think it's really evidenced, and I'm glad you spoke about students with disabilities, because in many of the ESSA reports we see, there's not a lot of growth for the subpopulations of those with disabilities. So it's exciting to see that that is a place where many students can have achievement and growth. So hopefully the achievement piece will come further, but at least we're seeing growth in that area through your program, which is wonderful. I'm also glad you talked about the graduation rates by subpopulation, because that's another area that is showing students are finding success through being able to do other pathways besides college focus necessarily. And not that all students may not choose that path, but it's helping those to find success that may or may not choose that as their path. I also am concerned about the reading levels, and so would you just have somebody from your group just explain a little bit more about what the strategies are again?
Absolutely.
To improve reading from here forward? Mm-hmm.
I'm Shelley Harden. I'm the literacy coach at the Academies of West Memphis. Obviously, we recognize we have an extreme literacy issue. Our students are reading below grade level. K-12, I mean, we start out behind and we spend 13 years trying to get them as far as we can. We have basically completely revamped the literacy program across our entire district, K-12, over the last 3 years. We've started real training for all of our teachers, K-12. We have a timeline where everyone will be trained. We've gone through the Literacy Lab program with Ken Stamatis, where we focused on pairing students' independent choices with with our expectations. We've implemented our critical reading programs in our secondary schools. Starting in junior high, we DRA all of our students in junior high, 100%. We start with STAR scores, we move to DRA test, the developmental reading assessment. And based on those scores, they then enter into, I don't like to call it a remediation program because it's so skill specific. Like in those critical reading classes, they are broken down specifically into the skills that the students are going to need. They're going to have vocabulary, they're going to have etymology, they're going to have reading aloud, they're going to have choral reading, they're going to have independent reading, and they're going to have comprehension skill strategies. And so we start that in junior high and then move that up into the high school with the students who still need it to try to meet 100% of those students' needs. And our data, there's actually a sheet in the appendix of our charter that our teachers use to track, and you can see some of those students make 3+ years growth with their reading in just a year of a critical reading class. We just did our mid-year assessment with our critical reading teachers, and I think we had 3 students in the whole program that maintained their reading level, and everyone else had grown 1, 2, or 3 or more reading levels according to the DRA assessment. So we're addressing those as best we can. We've revamped our writing curriculum, and just like we look at every area, every year, every minute, just about to do what we can. The teachers come together and talk about individual students and what their needs are, and it's just we're tackling it, but it's a big thing to tackle.
Okay, thank you. And
Can I add one thing to that?
yes, then I have.
I know that Ms. Burnett, our sophomore counselor, she's here today. When our counselors meet the parents when they come over for orientation their 10th grade year and they see that critical reading on their class, they're concerned about, is that a special education class? And no, it's not. It's an intervention class. And so they have questions about it. We will not, excuse me, we will not allow a student to come out of that class unless that parent has come to speak to me directly about why they want their child out of that class. And the reason for that is we have a short window, as we said, 500+ days till that kid's going to leave the building. And so when we're talking to that parent, we explain to them what that this is not an opinion. This is not what some teacher thinks. Based on the data, our decision is that your child is 3 grade levels behind. In 3 years, your child's going to be looking at applying for scholarships to get out of here. And it would be very beneficial if we could improve their grade levels. And when they see it from that standpoint, they're placed in that class along with their 10th grade English class concurrently at the same time. 2 different classrooms.
And then just another question. There's one piece of data that concerns me as far as, not really a concern, but just observation about the concurrent credit. I'm worried about subpopulations in that number because overall there's only 23% of your students that are ACT ready, but 56% are receiving concurrent credit. And to get concurrent credit, usually you have to meet the minimum ACT requirements. So it's your higher performing students that are able to get the concurrent credit. So knowing that for subpopulations or students that may struggle with the academic piece, are you also in addition offering the credentials, like career credentials? So are they taking their certification tests as far as they're welding certified, or they have a career credential so that they have equal opportunity to be employed if they're not meeting the ACT and concurrent pathway options?
I was saying, I think we make reference to that in the packet that Ms. Harden delivered. The short answer to that question is yes.
The packet addresses the completers. The completer is usually a series of classes, and I know it says it talks about the career ready certificate, but that's not a credential for an industry, if that makes sense. Being career ready is different than the actual, like the welding, TIG, MIG certification, those types. So I'm kind of specifically asking.
I know that when our students leave our welding program, it's industry recognized. Our kids are ready to go.
Okay.
And it was along the same lines of I'd made mention about our CNA when our students came out of that. We just got information this past week that 100% of our kids that were in that program passed the assessment, move on, so they are workforce career ready. And we're trying to drive for that. That's that unfair advantage that we like to talk about that may make our kids stand out versus another kid from somewhere else.
Thank you.
Okay, just a few things. One, I think you should be commended on the fact that you guys are doing something about reading. You know, a lot of people, like you mentioned, you don't have time to wait until the elementary fixes things or the middle school fixes things, and so to do something where you're taking critical reading 1, which could take the place of an English language arts class, instead of doing that alone, you're doing that with English language arts. So I think that's a great step. The question is, in knowing that those kids are grade levels behind and doing critical reading, what kind of training? You know, we're really pushing the science of reading and the RISE initiative that's kind of moving its way up there. And so have your teachers been trained, or is there plans to make sure that training gets done to where they're attacking that problem?
I'll address that from a system standpoint. We have cohorted out our, so to speak, our staff members, and we were told by the department, West Memphis School District had more faculty trained in the RISE initiative than any other school district in the entire state of Arkansas.
Oh.
We've also run parallel with Lucy Calkins' work, and we've sent our instructional coaches to their training to come back, and we've kind of adopted that as our guide and model as far as the writing side as well. And then we work with 2 outside consultants on literacy. We're trying to tackle it from every possible angle.
Good, great, thank you. And I just want to make sure I'm reading the chart right, and it's just a curiosity question. When it gives the total combined academy students enrolled in technical programs, just in that last year, and you may have mentioned it, and I just missed it, what are y'all seeing as the reason for the numbers going slightly down?
Well, back earlier in the presentation, we talked about, we did a student audit on our campus as well. And we were offering classes that our kids didn't want to take. And so when we revamp what we're doing in our business department, especially with our cybersecurity, web design and things like that, kids are staying on our campus taking those classes as well. So it does fluctuate a little bit from that standpoint.
There's also a variety of factors. Higher ed faces budget cuts just like we do. Once they face budget cuts, quickest way to start, getting to the bottom line is personnel or programs. And so when they start eliminating programs or eliminating the personnel that can teach the programs, then that has a trickle-down effect on our kids as well. And so some of that's based on the amount of dollars funded for higher ed.
All right. All right, any other questions from panel members? All right, not seeing any. I didn't see any issues related to the application. I did see one related to a waiver request. The first one being class size and teaching load. Ms. Hyde, if you could, did I pull up the wrong one? No, I see one related to that.
I saw it's red.
Okay, make sure I wasn't seeing things.
Mary Claire Hyatt, Arkansas Department of Education. All of the waiver issues have been resolved. On class size and teaching load, I did say they might need that additional waiver, but if you look up at their response that was added in, they do request that waiver. I think that the responses just got pasted in a little bit out of order.
Gotcha.
So, we have no remaining legal issues or anything on the legal review.
Okay, so any further questions on the application or the waiver request?
No.
Okay, you've heard the presentation and the answers to questions, so there, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the approval of the application.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion?
Just for consistency. Just as along the lines of the same last time, it's not that I think that they're not trying to do some great things and are doing some great things, but when you have on-time credits at 94%, but your reading score is at 19%, and you drop the letter grade, just along the same lines with the last one, I would have rather seen the motion for 3 years than 5.
I think kind of along those lines, I think there's really good things happening. There is some growth. There's a long way to go. And I think it wouldn't hurt to consider the 3 years versus 5, just to make sure in that time. I know we can call them back anytime, but that would really make it a little cleaner on monitoring and following and approval, renewal.
Okay.
Consider.
All right. Any other further discussion? Mr. Wilson, you've heard, we do have a motion and a second on the table. We can go ahead and vote on that motion, or if you would want to modify it at this time.
I prefer to stand on the 5-year motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, so,
Did you have an abstention?
yes. Dr. Kramers, did you vote on that? Let's just do a roll call. That'd be cleaner. All right, so on the motion to approve the 5-year renewal, we'll do roll call. Dr. Kramers?
Aye.
Okay, Dr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers,
No.
Ms. Newton,
Yes.
and Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 4-1. If you would, we missing something, Ms. Boyd? Oh, so we do have to take some notes to give you feedback on our responses, so if you'll just give us a minute, we'll provide that feedback to you.
Mr. Chair, while we're waiting on that feedback, I'd like to take a minute just to share my bias about this application now that you voted on it. So I'm from West Memphis, go Blue Devils. But one thing I did want to highlight and get on the record is that West Memphis started working with us on this application about a year before it was due. And that is something that I think the charter unit really appreciates. We had discussions about what their current goals were and what future goals should look like. We met over the phone, we met via Zoom, and we met in person on at least 3 occasions, probably more. So that was one reason why you didn't see any remaining concerns with this application, because we had ample time to work everything out and kind of run through what would look best and what would work best for students at the Academies of West Memphis. So I just wanted to share my appreciation for their work with the charter unit on that.
Okay.
I'm glad you waited till we voted.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, Mr. Oh, my vote was based primarily upon my visit over there and the growth work that is being and has been done.
All right, Ms. Newton.
I voted for the motion, and the explanation is industry and career readiness are strengths of the program.
All right, Mr. Rogers.
I voted against it, not against the school or what they were trying to accomplish, but given the reading scores and the on-time credit and just the drop in letter grade, I would have been more comfortable with 3 years.
All right, Mr. Williams.
I support the motion to renew. I believe the academic and career tech approach is the right approach for their area. There is a concern regarding the letter grade and the math and reading scores.
All right, Dr. Kramers.
I voted to approve the motion for renewal. There is still significant work to be done toward reading achievement, but the focus on career readiness and preparation is strong, and the successes with the subpopulations is evident.
Okay, so congratulations on the renewal, and go forth and continue the good work. Thank you. All right, so Mr. We okay to move on to the next one? Okay. All right, I see our next item on the agenda is request for, I want to make sure I understand this right. Is this a renewal, Mr. Ballard? Is this an amendment request? Okay, okay. So we do have an amendment request for Cross County New Tech High School. Ms. McLaughlin, you are recognized.
Thank you. Kelly McLaughlin, ADE Charter School Office. On January 14th, 2011, the Charter Authorizing Panel approved the application for Cross County New Tech High School. The charter is approved to serve students in grades 7 through 12 with a maximum enrollment of 500. We do have representatives of the Cross County New Tech High School appearing before you today to request an amendment of their current charter. You will want to swear in Stephen Prince, High School Principal, and Dr. Matt McClure, Chief Learning Officer.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hyatt, same procedures as far as just like a regular hearing, is that correct? Okay. Those representatives for the charter application or any those speaking opposition, if you would rise and raise your right hand. All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. Thank you. All right. Presenters, you have 20 minutes to start your presentation. You may begin.
Stephen Prince, the high school principal at Cross County High School and New Tech School. Before I begin on the amendment that we're requesting, I want to share some great news with you all. It's been a little while since we've had to come and present to the panel. with our recent successful year, I want to share a few data points with you. When we received our ESSA report back, we were quite pleased with our growth. We went up in every area. In reading, we increased by 10.25 percentage points. In math, 11.75 percentage points. In English, 6.75, and in science, 8. So we were very pleased with that, and that is attributed to the hard work of our teachers in our building, or in the building. We also received a C rating, and we were less than 1% from a B on that, so we are going to work really hard this year to try to get that B rating. We'd be happy with an A too, obviously, but we'll take that B too. But we also exceeded the state average on our overall ESSA index, our value-add growth, and our achievement. So we were very pleased with that successful year, and we hope to have another year just like that. Want to also talk a little bit about our college and career access program. In the last year graduating seniors, we had a 74% college going rate with those students. Which also exceeds the Arkansas average of 49% and the national average of 69%. And we also had a 92.68 grad rate, which again, in one of our goals is to exceed the state average, and we did do that. And we also exceeded the national average, and we hope to continue that momentum as well. We also were recognized by the OEP office, the OEP office for our growth at the high school. We were #1 in the Northeast region for our ELA growth, #3 in Arkansas for our overall growth, and #4 in Arkansas for our ELA growth. So we are very happy for the successful year we had and the recognition that we were given for that, and we're going to keep at it and hopefully see more next year. So to get into the amendment that I'm requesting, it is for our Library Media Center and Library Media Specialist. We currently have waivers for licensure and library media, but when we did the transition from the old standards to the new standards, we realized there's a few things we needed to tweak with that and add request some different waivers to make sure that we could still do what we needed to do. So we do have a traditional school library. I want to make sure I clarify that, and we will continue to have a school library. We have a very nice library with space for our students, lots of volumes, digital and print volumes, resources for our students. But we're asking for waivers for, when we think about the licensure part, we've been using the teacher licensure waiver for our library media specialists. But we also are requesting a waiver in terms of who we label and who we see as our library media specialist. The way we have been doing it is it's been an administrator that's been the library media specialist to oversee the functioning of the library, and we have a library aide that is trained in everything in the library to make sure that the library runs day to day for our students, and our students have everything they need and request for the library and for that. We also are one-to-one technology, so our students have access outside of the library media center to digital resources, research materials. Of course, the instruction in the classroom lends itself to make sure that our teachers are also teaching those skills that you would normally see a library media specialist teach in the library. So we're asking for the waivers for the codes 625-104 and 625-103 for the library media specialist and how we code them, and actually having one. We're asking that we not have to identify a specific library media specialist, and that I or another administrator designee can be the overseer and not have to put that in eSchool as a library media specialist, but still oversee that program and make sure that the students in the library have all the materials, resources they need. You know, that will still be what we do, the goal. And we're also asking for the standards of accreditation to make sure all that kind of meshes together for the library media specialist and the media center for student support. And of course, that does talk a little bit about licensure and then what the requirements are for the library media specialist and the duties of the library media specialist and the duties of what they call a library clerk, I believe. And I think that's it.
Is there any other additional information you guys have right now? Okay. Ms. McLaughlin.
I'm sorry, I wanted to make a clarification that there was a typo on the request that stated 624-104, but the statute is really 625-104, as Mr. Prince just alluded to.
625-104. say
5.
So on our list here, the waiver request says 624-104 and 625-103.
Yes, and it should be 625 on
104.
104.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition, Ms. McLaughlin?
No, there's not.
All right. You have additional time if you need it. Okay. All right, we will turn over to panel questions.
This is just for the staff that review waivers. Does this one come up very often?
Mary Claire Hyde, Arkansas Department of Education. Most open enrollment charters have this waiver. In terms of district conversions, it's not as frequent, but there are district conversions that have it. It's a really common waiver in terms of charters and district conversions.
Okay. Thank you. And I visited Cross County in the past, and the library was something that the school is very proud of.
Yes.
And I can say it's a great resource. So, will they be? You said they will be labeled as the library media specialist.
No, so currently, the way we've done it is either myself, assistant principal, or another administrator is labeled as a library media specialist, and then we have our aide that runs everything, the day-to-day operations. And we make sure that as that labeled library media specialist, that they have everything they need, the training, the resources, the funding, and all of that is allocated for that. I'm just asking that instead of putting it in eSchool, when they ask for the library media specialist, who's that half-time library media specialist, I'm asking not to have to do that. And I think that we needed these waivers as part of that to do.
Thank you.
So can I ask just a clarification, and this may be for our charter office or for the applicant, but so basically, you're not going to change the operation of what you're doing now. It's just been determined to continue to operate that way. You need this waiver.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
we won't change anything. If anything, we'll improve it, as we go through the years as needed.
Okay. See Ms. Hyatt walking up.
The reason that you're hearing this request is, as with a lot of schools, when we did that waiver transition from the old standards to the new, things that were not fully effectuated were kind of brought to light. And so in talking with other schools, and you've heard requests because of the same reason before, we tried to review all the waivers and make sure they were fully effectuated. And so it's not that their program is changing, it's just they were missing a couple of the pieces they need in order to do what they're already doing.
Gotcha. Okay. Dr. Williams?
I have no questions.
Mr. Rogers? Ms. Newton? Wilson? Okay. Not seeing any other questions. I think we've had issues addressed. I will entertain a motion.
Move the approval of the request.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the amendment request. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for coming. I got me a Dr. McClure going on here. I know, I need to look that up.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's got it. All right, well, thank y'all. Okay, I don't see anything further on our agenda, or is there anything else? Oh, do we need to do our? Yeah, sorry. I was trying to get us out of here. Let us get our reasons. We'll start with Dr. Kramer's.
I voted to approve the amendment request to facilitate the transition for the new standards.
Okay, Dr. Williams?
Oh, I actually like that rationale there. I support the amendment request. Basically, I have no concerns.
Okay, Mr. Rogers?
I voted for it. No concerns.
Ms. Newton?
I voted to approve the waiver request. It's a practical adjustment of waivers to meet program needs.
Okay, Mr. Wilson?
I voted for the request for the same reasons as Ms. Newton, a practical solution, to.
Okay, thank you. We're now done. Thank you. Okay, not seeing anything else in the agenda, Mr. Ballard, is that correct? All right, any news or anything we need to know about before next meeting? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, we're adjourned.